All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So today's lesson is going to be on the FDR administration. So, um, if you forgot from last class, or you know you just didn't watch it, uh, the the Great Depression has already started. We're in the thick of it, and now FDR comes in because he's promising a new hope, and people are basically trusting him now. And you're going to see what he does. And so this lesson is pretty long. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This one is pretty long, so bear with me because this is the whole thing, and then we'll be getting into uh, excuse me, the beginning parts of World War II, and some of it does come out in this part because it was during his administration when Hitler was building his power. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So here's your objectives. We're going to analyze the steps of President Roosevelt, what he did to stabilize the economy, examine the different programs and projects he commissioned, and create an argument whether it's fair that a president is judged in his first 100 days. All right, so here's your warm up picture. So, what I want you to do is to analyze this picture and tell me what is this artist trying to say about FDR? And basically, what does he want? So look at the all the little writing around and stuff like that, and basically tell me what's going on here. What is this artist trying to say about FDR? What does he want? And who's giving it to him? Who does he want it from? Okay. And again, look at the writing on the clothing, on the material and things like that. Okay. So write your response, pause the video because we're moving on in three, two, one. So here's the thing. Before FDR was elected, President Hoover, like a lot of Republicans at that time, felt that the government shouldn't interfere with the economy. You know, they felt that no. You know who knows about business? Business people. So let the business people handle the business. Let the government keep their nose out of it. Don't let them get involved with it. That's not the government's job. Well, here's the thing. They kind of need to be involved because look what the business people did with their greed and some of that. Got into a depression because of that. And the other thing was there wasn't a safety net. I use that term like with the quotation because we're not talking about a literal safety net, but we're talking about there's nothing to help out American people at that time like there is today. And some of these things we're going to be talking about, some of these programs, you you probably have heard of, you probably know about, but back then at this time, they weren't around. Okay, so by the time FDR was elected in 1932, about 15 million people could not get a job. Now, again, I don't mean like they were all just, I can't get a job, I'll just apply somewhere else. No, there was no jobs anywhere. They wanted to apply, they wanted to try to get a job, but there were no jobs. Now, how much is about 15 million people in our country at that time? About 20%. So about 1 in 5 people couldn't get a job in the whole country. Okay. So in the 1932 election, FDR wins easily because people were looking at Hoover as the reason why we had the Depression. Granted, he wasn't the one person, but his policies and the policies of the people before him, the Republicans, basically led to that. Okay. Now, on March 4th, 1933, FDR had his inauguration day, and he basically ordered that all banks be closed. You know, and um, the thing is, in his speech, he famously said, "Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Meaning, we have nothing to be scared of. The only thing we have to be scared of is that we are scared. That's it. If we can conquer that, nothing's in our way. So on his inauguration day, basically they celebrated, they had a good time, but first thing in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, bam, they were already at work. And again, one of the first things he did was he created a 4 day bank holiday. Now, why did he do this? Several reasons. One, this gave Congress time to basically pass bills, pass laws, to try to reopen banks and things like that, to give them money and things like that. Also gave time for banks to get money from people they lent money to. They lent money to a factory owner. Well, if the factory owner made some money, he could pay back some of the money on the loan, whether it was a little bit or a lot. It's still something that the banks could then give and repay the people. Be like, hey, Ted, you put in $100. We can't give you a whole $100, but we can give you 20 right now. That $20 is going to help that guy make it through another week in his life, probably. So that was the plan. The other thing that FDR did, which really, really brought up hope in people, was he spoke to them on the radio. And this became known as his fireside chats. And he basically talked to the people. He didn't tell them, this is you, this is your fault, this is what we're going to blame. This. No, he talked to the people and basically told them, this is our plan. This is what we're going to be doing. Keep your faith. We will get through this. Do not worry. You know, if you are fortunate, more fortunate than your neighbor, help them out. Help each other out. We're in this together. And this helped restore people's faith, not just themselves, but towards the government. Again, people lost total faith in the presidency. And here he is talking to them like if he was talking to you and me directly. And this helped people. Now, in his first 100 days, he made laws that passed that were aimed to stabilize the economy, help out factories, help out farm workers, and things like that. At the same time, they were creating jobs and they would help again restore the economy because when people have jobs, they get money. They get money, they buy things. They buy things. That makes the economy roll. Okay. Now, it's because of this, his first 100 days when he was on the ball rolling, getting things done. Every president is now judged of what they do their first 100 days. That's like the first report card, as they call it, of a president. What do you do in your first 100 days? Something, nothing, a lot. Okay, but he is the guy who we now judge presidents for when they first get elected, their first 100 days, because of him. Now, one of the things he changed, like basically forever in our country, was the banking industry. He introduced the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is the FDIC, which is that bottom picture you see there in the gold. So when you put your money in the bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, City Chase, whatever, if that bank has that logo on the bottom, your money is federally insured, meaning that if that bank is robbed, your money, you can still draw your money out. The government will bring money back to that bank so that you can get your money out. Okay. Now, if you bank at a place that doesn't have that, basically, if somebody robs that bank and it's not insured in any which way, your money's gone. Whereas this FDIC makes sure that the federal government says, we got you. Your money is safe. You can still take money out. Okay. He also created the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, and their job is to regulate the stock market. Because again, the whole thing with the crash was the stock was gaining, 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 when in reality, the company was doing horrible. The company was not doing well at all. Now, that's why this was made to make sure to oversight to prevent investors and companies from lying and fudging their numbers so that they could make it seem like their company is doing really good when in reality they're doing really horrible. Okay. And this helps them stop the abuse of stock market crashes. Now, I had a student some years ago tell me, well, if they made this, how come there's always stuff happening in the stock market? How come there's always problems, things like that? Because some politicians, I hate to say it, but they are bought off by companies and things like that, and they want deregulation. So they cut the power from that group so they can do whatever they want and get away with it legally. Okay. Now, all of the programs that Roosevelt had created were part of the recovery plan, which became known as the New Deal. The New Deal was not just one little thing, two little things. It was massive, huge thing. And they had a bunch of different public works projects that not only got people jobs, it also gave back to the people and to the country. It gave people something. And you're going to see what I mean in a second. So, a great example was the Tennessee Valley Authority, a TVA. What these guys did was they built dams and hydroelectric projects in the area. Now, why did they build it there? Well, because history has shown that that area flooded like crazy. And what basically they decided to do was build a dam. And with a dam, then they can use that water to basically put a generator and get electricity. And now, hey, now you got free electricity. Also, it held back the water so that the farmlands didn't get destroyed and things like that. If they needed water, they could release the water, they could control it, you know. But hey, it saved people's lands, farmlands, and things like that. It had water now that whenever they need it, it's right there. And on top of that, they got free electricity because of the water. You know, so not only did they do that in Tennessee, but they also did it in Nevada Arizona border. It's called the Hoover Dam. And again, the Colorado River, same thing. It would flood, it would get really high, things like that. So they created that dam to give electricity, and that electricity is what we here in California, Arizona, Nevada, and several other states use. That's how much power that dam creates for us here in the West Coast. Excuse me. Now, the Works Project Program, WPA, was another job place where they gave permanent jobs to people. Basically, 8.5 million people started working for the government between 1935 and 1943. And here's the other thing, too. Remember, we talked about the safety nets? This is something that people were like, well, how come we don't have it? The United States was one of the only few countries, industrialized country, in the world without some type of unemployment insurance. So the Congress decided, we need to do that. So they created this thing called the Social Security Act. And if you have a job and you get a check, you see on the stub, it says on there, social S, things like that, or SS tax. That's what they're taking it from. That's what it goes to that. Okay. And this is the first time that Americans are getting unemployment, disability, a pension. Okay. So when people lose their jobs, hey, they can get paid, still get paid until they find their next job. People got hurt, fell off a tree and they busted their back. Before, hey, that was it. You're done. Unless you got a family taking care of you, you're not getting any money. You're not being taken care of. This disability um, safety net at least give the people some money to help them get on their feet and try to make a living somehow. And pensions were for older people, people who worked all their lives. Now they can relax and have some money saved to the side for them so they can enjoy the rest of their lives after they're done working. Now, it's at this point that there were small signs of recovery coming from our country. And over the next 3 years, things started getting better, a little bit by a little bit, baby steps, right? Excuse me. So in 1937, the Federal Reserve basically felt that, hey, things are good enough now. Let's increase the money in its revenue. Let's raise the taxes a little bit. And this hurt the country again. So we were making baby steps. And then when the government got kind of greedy, thought, hey, we can now really take off. It hurt us again. So we went down again, you know. And the depression lasted a little bit longer now because of that one incident. Now, once that happened, people started listening to things around the world, and the world was changing. News was coming from around the world that different governments around the world were changing. And one government in particular, one leader in particular, was making more noise than others, more than Stalin, more than Mussolini, you know, and that guy was Adolf Hitler. Hitler was the new leader of Germany. He had a new political group called the Nazis. And surprisingly, he was able to get Germany from the gutter to the top. And people were like, how's he doing this? How in the world is he making Germany so much better when they were just, I mean, dirt poor? Their money was nothing, you know, 10 years ago. How did he do this? And then rumors start coming about his mistreatment towards certain citizens, certain a certain ethnic group. And then war broke out in Poland in 1939, September 1st, 1939 to be specific. Okay. It was at this time, the United States, we were neutral. We were not part of the war at all. But FDR does something very tricky. He changes the WPA from cleaning and rebuilding our country, cleaning the forest land and cleaning the roads and some of that. He switches it to strengthening the military infrastructure, fixing up roads near um, forts and things like that, factories and things like that. Start getting them up and going, update them and things like that. But again, we were still neutral. We were not taking sides. But FDR, smelling something in the air, decides to change that program. All right, so now let's talk about women at this time in the U.S. Now, unlike their mothers in the past, these women in the 1930s had to get jobs in order to keep paying the bills and keep their families together. Yes, you heard me right. Some families during the Great Depression broke up. Parents, sad to say, they sold their kids or sent them away to another family member because they couldn't take care of them. And it would be years later that families would reunite, and some of them never did. And it was a bad time during the Great Depression. Also, here's another interesting fact: 22% of marriages declined. Okay, meaning, well, just should rephrase that. There was a 22% decline in marriages between 1929 and 1939. People were not getting married. And why is that? Mainly for women. It was easier for a woman to stay single and survive than it was a married one, whether she had kids or not. You know, because thing is, uh, a woman by herself, she all she has to worry about is herself, so she can get a job and take care of herself. And a lot of women, they knew how to cook, clean, and things like that. Um, so they really didn't need a man, especially if they can find a job. Okay. Now, here's the thing: if a woman needed a role model, they didn't have to look far. The number one role model at this time was the First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt, which is a picture of her right there. Okay. Now, the thing is, why was she so influential? It's not because she was the First Lady, it's because she was a smart First Lady. All right. She wasn't just FDR's wife, she was his advisor. She was a very analytical woman. She thought about things. She was very well educated. well read, things like that. She really was his right hand in a sense. She listened to things and was like giving her 2 cents. She lobbied for him, telling him, you need to hire more women. Women can do just as much work as men and things like that, la la la. So he decided, you know what, you're right. So he hired this woman named Frances Perkins, and she's the first woman to hold a cabinet position in the executive office. Now, I hate to say it because even now, it's not completely even, but back then it's even worse. Women were not paid the same as men, but a lot of the jobs available to women were more stable jobs. Some of the jobs men had were only like seasonal, whereas women had jobs that were more stable. Nursing, teaching, being a domestic worker, things like that. So their jobs were pretty consistent. They were always needed. So for African Americans, I hate to say this, but during the Depression, especially during the South, those guys were hurt the worst because the only jobs they could get was farm workers and being domestic workers, meaning like um, they were nannies and maids and things like that. And those jobs were not included in the Social Security Act, meaning once they were fired or retired, they couldn't get any help because they did not put into the Social Security, they did not put into the government, and this means no safety net. So if they got fired, that was it. No more money coming in. And if they tried to get relief, any type of relief, a lot of them didn't get it because the people who were in charge of giving it out and approving it, these were some of the racist people in the South. So once they saw that, hey, oh, they saw that name, they saw what town they were from, things like that. Yeah, nope, nope, you're not getting the assistance. Sorry, somebody else needs it. So Roosevelt, he was, again, pretty smart man. He knew, I cannot say that I know what it's like to be an African American because I'm not. I can't imagine what they're going through. He goes, instead, I need somebody who actually is an African American who can tell me what they need, what their life is like, what they're going through. And he had a black cabinet, and the head of it was this woman right here. You see, Mary McLeod. I'm going to kill that last name, Bethune, and she was in charge. And he basically told her, okay, you help me out. Help me out to help out African Americans. And she basically said, number one thing, every program in the New Deal need to have an African American advisor in it because they need to know what this program is, what it's doing, and how can it help African Americans. And it's because of her, really, that the number of African Americans working for the government tripled. Okay, so again, FDR knew he didn't know what it's like to be an African American, so he hired somebody, and then they in turn make sure that every department had an African American advisor. So going back to the women's thing really quickly, um, women would continue to work until the 1940s. Okay, now there was some kind of bad things happening too. 26 states placed restrictions on women, known as the marriage bar. And what this basically said was that if you're a married woman, you shouldn't be working. You should be at home, you know, taking care of your kids, taking care of the house. Because here's the thing, a man needs that job, because again, men were making more money than women. So they felt, well, the woman should be at home taking care of the kids. If you're a married woman, you need to be home. because a married man needs that job and that family is depending on him. So there were a lot of women who were um, married, but they hid their marriage. So they said they were single, but in reality they were married, but they hid that marriage so they could keep that job. Okay. Um, Now, again, things progress slowly, get going on, and it wasn't until 1942 that the Great Depression truly ended here in America. But at that time, something happens in America where we go from a really bad situation, we crawled out of it, and now we're going to be brought into another situation. But this is a situation that's going to change the world forever. All right, so here is my first question to you. What do you think the First Lady's role should be? And I'm not talking about one particular, I mean all of them. What do you think it should be? Should she be an advisor for the president? Should she be a diplomat? Should she be the one who goes and sees foreign um, uh, leaders and things like that? Talk to them when they come over to the United States. She's the one who gives them a tour around the place, things like that. Should she be a spokesman? Hey, get kids off drugs, get kids to read, eat healthy, things like that. Or should she be an ornament? She should be there just to look pretty, make the make the president look good. Kind of like I hate to use the term, but a trophy wife, you know? Or should she just be the wife of the president? Don't give her any jobs. Don't give her anything special to do. Just let her be the wife of the president. That's it. So which one do you think should she be? If she's the first lady, what should her role be, in your opinion? Okay, and tell me, why do you believe that? Why do you believe she should be as an advisor, a diplomat, a spokesman, an ornament, or just being the wife? Tell me, why do you believe that? Okay. Um, Once you finish this question, you're done with this lesson. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I do apologize for the length of this video. Again, I know this one was long, but this was important because this administration changed our country forever. Okay. So, with that being said, you guys take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.